Most people are not failing because they are incapable. They are failing because they never truly question their lives. Success slips away quietly while comfort feels convincing. Most people dream of success, yet few achieve it. Not because they lack ability, but because they fear discomfort, responsibility, and standing apart. Are you willing to face what most people will never dare to see? Society teaches us how to survive, but rarely how to awaken. We learn how to fit in, not how to understand ourselves. And without awareness, even great potential remains unused. Society teaches us how to fit in, not how to awaken. We are trained to follow routines, seek approval, and avoid questions that make life uncomfortable. And yet, real success, requires awakening to truth, courage, and the discipline to live deliberately. Success is not for those who follow. It is for those who awaken, take responsibility, embrace discomfort, and stand apart. Comfort, approval, distraction, and fear are the walls that hold most people back. But you may, if willing to choose awareness, discipline, and courage, can break them and create a life of meaning. Take a moment today. Ask yourself, am I living as others expect, or am I living as I must? The choice is yours. If this speech inspired you, hit like, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications so you never miss life-changing motivational speech. Most people are not trapped by failure. They are lulled to sleep by comfort. Comfort is quiet. It does not shout or demand. It gently whispers, "Stay here. This is good enough." And because it feels safe, familiar, and painless, we rarely question it. But comfort has a subtle cost. It slowly trades growth for convenience and truth for familiarity. Truth, on the other hand, is rarely comfortable. Truth asks questions that disturb our routines. It invites us to look honestly at our habits, our fears, and our excuses. And this is precisely why so many people avoid it, not because they are weak, but because truth requires movement, and movement brings uncertainty. Most lives are lived on autopilot. People follow paths laid out by culture, family, or circumstance, not because those paths are meaningful, but because they are already paved. Comfort says, "This is how it's done. Don't risk being different." And so years pass, routines harden, and potential remains untouched. Growth does not happen where life is easy. Growth begins at the edge of discomfort, where questions arise, where identity loosens, where certainty dissolves. Yet many confuse comfort with happiness. They cling to routines that numb them rather than awaken them. They choose predictability over possibility. When someone chooses comfort, they often say, "One day I'll change." But comfort thrives on delay. It convinces you there is plenty of time while quietly stealing the present moment. The truth is, waiting is a decision, and often it is a decision to remain the same. Truth demands responsibility. It asks you to admit when something no longer fits, when a habit no longer serves you, when a life you are living is not aligned with who you are becoming. This can feel unsettling, even frightening, but without this discomfort there is no transformation. Most people avoid truth because it threatens the identity they have built. And yet, identity is not something to defend, it is something to evolve. When you let go of comfort, you don't lose yourself. You discover a deeper version of who you are. Success does not belong to those who seek ease. It belongs to those who are willing to be honest when honesty is inconvenient. To choose awareness over avoidance. To choose growth over familiarity. And perhaps the greatest irony is this: the comfort we cling to eventually becomes uncomfortable. Regret, stagnation, and unfulfilled potential are far heavier burdens than temporary discomfort ever could be. So the question is not whether truth will challenge you. It will. The question is whether you are willing to listen. Have you noticed a moment in your life where comfort held you back from growth? Share your experience in the comments. Your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Most people do not live the life they want. They live the life that will be approved. From an early age, we learn a quiet lesson. Acceptance equals safety. We are rewarded for fitting in, praised for agreement, and gently corrected when we step outside the lines. Over time, this conditioning becomes internal. We no longer need others to disapprove of us. We do it ourselves. The fear of disapproval is subtle but powerful. It hides behind reasonable explanations. This is more practical. People won't understand. I don't want to disappoint anyone. And yet beneath these thoughts is a deeper anxiety, the fear of standing alone. Many people confuse acceptance with belonging. But belonging that requires you to silence your truth is not belonging at all. It is a transaction. You trade authenticity for approval, and in return, you receive temporary comfort and long-term dissatisfaction. When decisions are shaped by how they will be perceived, life becomes a performance. You begin to ask not, is this true for me, but how will this look? And slowly the center of authority moves outward. Other people's opinions become the compass by which you navigate your life, but no crowd can tell you who you are, and no amount of approval can replace self-respect. Fear of disapproval keeps people in relationships that drain them, careers that numb them, and identities that no longer fit. It convinces them that rejection is worse than regret. Yet regret is quieter, it waits patiently, growing heavier with time. To step beyond this fear requires courage, but not the dramatic kind. It requires the quiet courage of honesty, the courage to disappoint others rather than abandon yourself, the courage to accept that not everyone will understand your path, and that they don't need to. When you stop seeking approval, something unexpected happens. You don't become reckless or selfish, you become grounded. Decisions become simpler because they are rooted in clarity rather than fear. You begin to act from alignment instead of anxiety. Fulfillment does not come from being liked, it comes from living in harmony with your own values. And paradoxically, when you stop trying to be accepted by everyone, you attract deeper, more meaningful connections. People who resonate with who you truly are. Most people will never experience this freedom, not because it is impossible, but because it requires letting go of something very seductive, the illusion of safety and approval. But life is not asking you to be approved, it is asking you to be authentic. Have you ever made a decision mainly to avoid disappointing others? Share your experience in the comments. Your honesty may help someone else choose fulfillment over approval. Most people are not asleep because they lack intelligence. They are asleep because they never pause. Life moves quickly, and without awareness it begins to repeat itself. Days blur together, habits solidify, and before one realizes it, years have passed without deep examination. Not because life was empty, but because it was lived unconsciously. Awareness is rare because it requires stillness, and stillness feels uncomfortable. In silence, there is nothing to distract us from ourselves. We must face our thoughts, our patterns, our fears, and so many choose movement instead, busy schedules, endless consumption, constant noise, anything to avoid the mirror of awareness. Without self-reflection, life becomes a loop. The same reactions, the same mistakes, the same emotional cycles appear again and again, wearing different disguises. We call this fate, bad luck, or circumstance, but often it is simply unconscious habit repeating itself. Awareness interrupts this cycle. It is the moment you notice not just what you do, but why you do it. The moment you observe your thoughts instead of being dragged by them. This simple act of noticing begins to loosen the grip of old patterns. But awareness does not flatter the ego. It reveals contradictions. It exposes excuses. It shows us where we have been avoiding responsibility. And because this can feel unsettling, many people prefer certainty over clarity, even if that certainty keeps them stuck. To be aware is not to judge yourself. It is to see clearly, and clarity is transformative. When you see a pattern clearly, it loses its power. When you recognize a habit consciously, it can no longer run your life invisibly. Most people believe change requires effort, willpower, or force, but lasting change begins with awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see, and you do not need to fight what you fully understand. Awareness is the difference between reacting and responding, between repeating the past and choosing something new. It places space between stimulus and response, and in that space freedom emerges. This is why awareness is the foundation of success, not external success, but inner alignment. A life lived consciously may still face challenges, but it is no longer accidental. It is intentional. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that many never realize they are living the same moment over and over again. Awareness breaks the spell. When was the last time you truly paused and observed your own patterns? Share in the comments, what did awareness reveal to you? Blame is comfortable. Responsibility is liberating, but uncomfortable. When something goes wrong, the mind immediately looks outward. circumstances, people, timing, luck, anything to avoid the quiet realization that we are involved. Blame offers relief. It tells us the problem is elsewhere, and therefore nothing must change within us. But blame is a cage disguised as comfort. Responsibility is often misunderstood. It is not self-punishment, nor is it guilt. Responsibility simply means recognizing where your power truly lies. And power, strangely enough, is something many people avoid, because power comes with accountability, and accountability demands awareness and action. To avoid responsibility is to hand control over to external forces. When life is always happening to you, you remain a passenger. Blame keeps you passive. It gives you an excuse to wait, to complain, to repeat the same outcomes while feeling justified. Yet the moment you accept responsibility, something shifts. You no longer need the world to change before you do. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this asking of me?" This shift is not easy. Responsibility strips away comforting narratives. It challenges the ego's need to be right. It exposes the habits, choices, and reactions that quietly shape our lives. And this is why many resist it, not because they cannot take responsibility, but because it disrupts the story they tell themselves. Most people associate responsibility with burden. In truth, it is freedom. When you take responsibility, you reclaim agency. You realize that while you may not control every event, you always influence your response. Blame keeps you anchored in the past. Responsibility brings you into the present. It returns your attention to what you can do now, and the present moment is the only place where change is possible. There is a deep strength in saying, "This is mine to work with," not because you caused everything, but because you choose not to remain powerless. Responsibility is not about fault, it is about authorship. Those who succeed are not free from difficulty. They simply refuse to live as victims of their circumstances. They understand that inner authority matters more than external conditions. Blame may protect your pride, but it weakens your life. Responsibility may challenge you, but it restores your power. And power, once reclaimed, changes everything. Have you ever noticed how blame kept you stuck in a situation longer than necessary? Share your experience in the comments. Your insight could help someone else reclaim their power. Most people fear discipline. They imagine it as chains, a narrowing of life, a relentless set of rules. But this is a misunderstanding. What is often called discipline is not punishment, it is a path to freedom. The irony is profound. The very thing that feels restrictive in the short term is what expands life in the long term. Discipline is not doing what others expect, nor is it blind adherence to habit. True discipline is conscious alignment. It is choosing actions that serve your highest goals, even when the immediate temptation is to avoid effort. It is the willingness to say no to distraction, so you can say yes to your potential. Most people mistake comfort for freedom. They believe that living without structure, without effort, without boundaries is liberation. And yet, this so-called freedom often leads to chaos, regret, and frustration. Life without discipline leaves us scattered, reactive, and powerless. The freedom we crave cannot exist without the order that discipline provides. Discipline is not about what you give up. It is about what you gain. Every act of discipline is an investment in your focus, your skill, your clarity, and your self-respect. Each choice to show up, even when it is hard, strengthens your inner authority. Over time, these choices compound. They create a life that is expansive rather than constrained, meaningful rather than superficial. When we fail to understand this, we see discipline as restriction. We resist it, complaining that it limits joy, spontaneity, or pleasure. But without it, the joy we seek is shallow, the spontaneity uncontrolled, and the pleasure fleeting. True freedom, freedom that is deep, lasting, and empowering, emerges only from a disciplined mind and a disciplined life. Discipline teaches patience. It teaches delayed gratification. It teaches that we are not slaves to impulses or fleeting desires. And in learning this, we become masters of ourselves. The paradox is clear. The more disciplined you are, the freer you become. Boundaries give structure. Structure gives clarity. And clarity allows you to act without confusion or hesitation. Those who avoid discipline remain reactive, tossed by circumstance and temptation. Those who embrace it gain autonomy. They can choose their path instead of drifting along someone else's current. Discipline is the bridge between potential and reality, between dreams and manifestation. And yet, embracing discipline requires humility. It requires recognizing that instant comfort is often a lie, and that effort, though uncomfortable, is the gateway to mastery. Have you ever resisted discipline because it felt restrictive, only to realize later it gave you freedom? Share your story in the comments. Your experience may inspire someone else to embrace their own path. Most people chase what feels good right now. They reach for comfort, convenience, and instant gratification, as if the moment itself were all that matters. Yet the truth is subtle. Immediate pleasure often comes at the cost of long-term fulfillment. The sweet relief of procrastination, the tiny indulgence of avoidance, or the fleeting thrill of distraction can cloud our ability to see the life we are actually creating. Every choice we make today is writing a story we will live tomorrow. And when we prioritize comfort over clarity, the story drifts in directions we may later regret. This is why short-term pleasure is seductive. It is easy, it gives the illusion of freedom. Watching another episode, scrolling endlessly, avoiding difficult conversations, or choosing the easiest path all feel harmless in the moment. But each small choice accumulates, weaving a life shaped by impulse rather than intention. The future does not forgive these decisions quietly. It waits patiently until the weight of regret arrives. Long-term vision is not a restriction, it is a kind of awareness. It asks you to look beyond the present itch for comfort and to ask, what am I building? Where am I heading? It is a pause before indulgence, a moment of reflection before reaction. And yet, few cultivate it, because it often feels hard. To act with foresight requires resisting temptation, embracing discomfort, and delaying gratification, all of which are inherently counterintuitive in a world that constantly offers instant pleasure. The challenge is not that pleasure is bad, it is that unexamined pleasure blinds us to consequences. Eating, resting, or enjoying simple pleasures is natural, but when these small comforts replace effort, reflection, and disciplined action, they become chains disguised as rewards. Life gradually slips by, unnoticed, as we feed the habit of now and starve the future. Those who succeed in life are not necessarily the luckiest. They are the ones willing to forego immediate satisfaction for lasting impact. They understand that true pleasure emerges from growth, achievement, and alignment with purpose. Every moment of restraint, every conscious decision to invest in what matters, compounds over time into freedom, skill, and fulfillment. Imagine a life lived entirely in the present comfort of impulse. The short term feels easy, but the long term feels empty. Contrast that with a life where every choice, even uncomfortable ones, serves a vision larger than yourself. The difference is profound. One leads to regret, the other to mastery. Short-term pleasure is alluring, but only long-term vision carries the weight of meaning. Awareness allows you to see the trade-off clearly. Discipline allows you to choose wisely, and courage allows you to sacrifice the temporary for the eternal. Have you ever chosen comfort over long-term growth, only to regret it later? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else see the value of delayed gratification. Most people avoid silence as if it were a threat. They fill every moment with noise, distraction, or activity, anything to escape the stillness. But the truth is simple. Silence is not dangerous. Silence is revealing. It shows what we have ignored, what we have denied, and what we have never fully understood about ourselves. In quiet moments, our thoughts rise to the surface. Emotions we have buried become visible. Questions we have avoided start to ask themselves, who am I? What am I doing? Am I living or merely existing? This is why silence is feared. It demands honesty. It dissolves illusions. It exposes the places where we have been complacent, where comfort has replaced courage, and where we have chosen familiarity over growth. When the world is loud, we can hide behind it. When the mind is quiet, we can hide no longer. Most people misunderstand silence as emptiness. They imagine that nothingness is uncomfortable or meaningless. Yet silence is the space in which life actually speaks. It is the canvas on which insight paints clarity. In silence, the patterns of our habits, the consequences of our choices, and the hidden longings of our hearts become visible. And it is only when we see these things that we can respond consciously. Fear of silence also comes from fear of confrontation, not with others, but with ourselves. When the noise stops, we face the ego, the excuses, the stories we have told to justify inaction. This can feel threatening, because self-examination often reveals responsibility we would rather avoid, courage we have delayed, or truths we have resisted. Yet embracing silence is liberating. In quiet, we discover that we are not the thoughts we fear, nor the patterns we regret. We are the observer, the witness, the awareness that holds the entire experience. In this realization, fear diminishes. In this clarity, choices become free from unconscious reaction. Most people live their lives to avoid this confrontation. They fill every moment with noise, consumption, and distraction, constantly running from the questions that matter most. And in doing so, they remain trapped in patterns that neither serve nor satisfy them. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of truth. It allows you to hear your own voice over the chorus of expectation and habit. It creates the space to ask, am I moving in the direction of my own growth, or am I drifting with the tide? Embrace silence, and you embrace awareness. Embrace awareness, and you reclaim the power to shape your life with intention rather than habit. When was the last time you allowed yourself to sit in complete silence? What did it reveal about your life or your choices? Share your experience in the comments. Your insight might help someone else confront the quiet that leads to freedom. Most people dream of success, yet few achieve it. Not because they lack ability, but because they fear standing apart. True success is not a product of conformity. It is not a reflection of following the crowd, mimicking patterns, or doing what is popular. Success requires originality, courage, and the willingness to walk a path that others may not understand. And most people are unwilling to stand alone. They fear the gaze of disapproval, the whispers of doubt, and the isolation that comes with difference. The paradox is clear. To be extraordinary, you must diverge from ordinary expectations. To build, create, or transform, you cannot wait for permission. You cannot rely on approval. And yet, from an early age, society teaches conformity, obedience, and the comfort of sameness. The result is that most people blend into the crowd, thinking safety lies in similarity. But safety is not growth, and similarity is not success. Standing apart is uncomfortable because it exposes you. When you walk a different path, you become visible, vulnerable to criticism, misunderstanding, and even rejection. Your choices may look strange, risky, or illogical to those who cling to comfort. But this discomfort is the very mechanism of transformation. It is the pressure that strengthens character, hones focus, and clarifies purpose. Success also requires self-trust, the ability to believe in a vision that no one else sees, to act on values that may be misunderstood, and to persist when recognition is absent. Most people avoid this because it demands independence, resilience, and the willingness to embrace solitude. Yet it is precisely this willingness that separates those who achieve from those who merely dream. When you choose difference over conformity, you do not reject the world, you engage with it on your own terms. You stop measuring your life against the lives of others and begin defining it according to your own principles. You learn to move confidently even when applause is absent, because the approval of others is never as powerful as the clarity of your own intention. Most people fear failure more than stagnation, yet failure is temporary. What lasts is alignment with your truth, and it is only those willing to be different, to stand alone when necessary, who discover the depth of their potential. The road to success is lonely because it requires breaking away from the herd, but loneliness is a companion to freedom, clarity, and purpose. Those who embrace it find that standing apart is not isolation, it is liberation. They become architects of their lives, creators of their paths, and masters of their destiny. To succeed, you must accept that difference is not a curse, it is your calling. And in accepting this, you finally step into the life you are meant to live. Have you ever resisted being different because you feared standing alone? Share your story in the comments. Your courage could inspire someone else to take the first step toward their own path.